Ethan was an ordinary human working far away from his home planet. He had taken a maintenance job on the planet Valaris, a world known for its glowing skies and tall silver towers. The planet looked like something out of a dream, where every building shined and the air smelled faintly of flowers. Valaris was the heart of art, fashion, and beauty for many alien races. To most humans, this place was unreachable, but Ethan had managed to get a work permit after passing a long series of exams and background checks. He never expected to be surrounded by celebrities and famous designers, but that was his daily life now. His job was simple. He maintained the lighting systems for the Galactic Fashion Expo, an event that attracted visitors from across the stars. The expo was huge, and hundreds of alien species gathered there to see their favorite stars. Ethan didn't care much about fashion. He cared about doing his work right. While other humans stared at the alien models with wide eyes, he stayed focused, checking wires, adjusting panels, and testing the systems. He wanted to make sure the lights didn't fail during the live broadcast, because that had happened once before, and the company almost fired him even though it wasn't his fault. The next event was supposed to be the grandest show in Valerian history. It featured Lyra Valren, the most admired alien supermodel in the galaxy. Everyone talked about her like she was a goddess, how her crystal blue skin shimmered under light, how her voice could make the crowd go silent, and how she never smiled for anyone except when she truly wanted to. Ethan had seen her pictures on posters everywhere, but he never thought he would meet her in person. On the day of the event, the stage was alive with color. Floating cameras hovered above. The audience filled the enormous hall and the music vibrated through the floor. Ethan was working behind the scenes, checking the last few systems. Everything looked perfect until one warning light flashed red. His heart jumped. The main light panel that controlled the spotlight above the runway had short-circuited. He grabbed his tools and ran toward the panel, which was positioned just above the stage. The show was minutes away from starting. If the main light failed now, it would be a disaster. Without thinking, Ethan climbed up the maintenance ladder that led to the upper structure, his tool belt clinking as he moved. When he reached the top, he opened the panel and began rewiring it quickly. Sparks flew out and the crowd below gasped. They could see him working, a single human in plain gray overalls standing above the grand stage where the galaxy's most famous model would appear any moment. He ignored the noise, focusing on his task. Just as he was finishing, the background music changed. The runway lights flashed and a soft blue glow filled the air. That was the signal. Lyra Valren was making her entrance. Ethan froze for a moment as he saw her walk out from the other side of the stage. Even from above, she looked unreal. Her tall, graceful figure moved like water, her skin glowing faintly as it reflected the light he had just repaired. Her eyes were bright like polished glass, and her long silver hair floated gently as if it were underwater. The crowd roared her name again and again, but she didn't seem distracted. Her expression was calm, confident, and elegant. Then something unexpected happened. The light flickered again just for a second. The spotlight that was meant to follow her dimmed. The crowd gasped and the control team panicked, yelling into their headsets. Ethan didn't wait for instructions. He jumped into action. He adjusted the power balance manually, crawling onto the edge of the metal beam to reach the backup connection. Down below, Lyra paused. Her eyes followed the faint movement above, and she saw him, this small, brave human hanging from a high platform, trying to save the show. When the light finally stabilized, the crowd cheered again, not realizing that one man had just risked his life to fix it. Lyra's gaze lingered upward for a few seconds, and a small, genuine smile touched her lips. After the show ended, Ethan climbed down, sweating and exhausted. He was ready to go back to his small room when one of the assistants stopped him. "The star wants to see you," she said in a soft but firm voice. Ethan blinked. "The star? You mean Lyra Valren?" The assistant nodded. "She requested you personally." Ethan followed her through long glass hallways that overlooked the shining city. When they reached a large dressing room, the assistant stopped and motioned for him to go inside. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, the room was filled with mirrors and soft glowing lights. The scent of some alien perfume filled the air. And there she was, Lyra Valren herself, sitting gracefully on a silver chair, still wearing her shimmering gown. Her bright eyes lifted as soon as he stepped in. "You were the one fixing the lights. she said softly. Her voice was smooth, musical, and slightly echoing as if it carried more than one tone. Ethan stood still, unsure what to say. Yes, ma'am. Sorry if I caused a scene. I was just doing my job. Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him. Most humans tremble when they stand before me, but you don't seem afraid. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Well, fear doesn't fix broken circuits. To his surprise, she laughed. It was a light, pure sound, something few had ever heard from her. You speak honestly. I like that. She stood and walked closer, her height a little taller than him. The glow of her skin reflected in his eyes like starlight. Tell me your name, she said. Ethan, he replied. Ethan, she repeated, as if testing the sound of it. You risked yourself for something so small. Why? He thought about it for a second. Because it mattered to someone. That's enough reason. Lyra's eyes softened. She was used to people chasing fame, wealth, and beauty. But this human cared only about responsibility and doing what was right. That was new to her. Thank you, she said quietly. You saved the show, he shrugged. Just part of the job, she smiled again. Still, you did it well. I would like you to handle my personal stage lighting for the rest of my events here. Ethan was surprised. Me, but I'm just a technician. Exactly, she said with a glint in her eyes. A technician who isn't afraid of stars. From that day onward, Ethan began working directly with her team. Every day he came early, setting up systems, checking her stage lights, and trying not to draw too much attention. But Lyra always noticed him. Whenever he was nearby, her eyes would find him among dozens of others. Sometimes, between breaks, she would talk to him. Small conversations at first. She asked about Earth, about human life, and what people there dreamed about. Ethan told her stories of oceans, forests, and simple lives. Stories of people who worked hard, loved deeply, and didn't live among fame. She listened carefully as if each word was something precious. For Lyra, the galaxy had always treated her like an image, not a person. Her every move was watched, her smile rehearsed, her life controlled by managers and sponsors. But with Ethan, she didn't need to pretend. He never treated her like an idol. He treated her like someone normal, and that made her heart feel lighter. One evening, after another long day of shooting, Lyra invited him to see the floating gardens of Valaris. It was a private area reserved for high-class citizens. Ethan hesitated, saying, I don't think they'll let a human like me in. She smiled. They will if I say so. They took a sky car up the glowing airways where crystal bridges stretched between towers. The gardens floated in the air, covered with flowers that glowed in every color of the rainbow. The air felt warm and soft, and the stars above shimmered brighter than anything Ethan had ever seen. Lyra walked beside him silently for a while before speaking. You humans are strange, she said. How so? He asked. You see everything with such small eyes, but you notice the beauty we often ignore. You fix things no one else dares to touch. You stand among beings far greater than you and still act like you belong. Ethan smiled slightly. Maybe it's because humans are used to being the small ones. When you grow up on a world where everything's dangerous, you learn not to panic easily. Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. Dangerous? Yeah, he said. Our planet can kill us 100 different ways, storms, wild animals, sickness. But we survive, we adapt. Maybe that's what makes us strong. She stared at him for a long time, something unspoken forming in her eyes. You're different from the others I've met, she said softly. Ethan laughed lightly. Probably because I don't know how to act around famous people. She shook her head gently. No, it's because you see me, not my image. They stood there under the starlit garden, the silence stretching between them like soft music. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt something she couldn't explain. A sense of peace. Not the shallow admiration of the crowd, but something real. That night, when she returned to her apartment, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. For years, she had been the symbol of perfection for her people. Yet that one human's words echoed in her mind, because it mattered to someone. That's enough reason. The next morning, her assistants noticed something unusual. Lyra was smiling to herself, humming quietly. They whispered that the human technician had changed her mood. As for Ethan, he couldn't stop thinking about her either. Not because she was beautiful, though she was beyond description, but because she had listened. Really listened. No alien, no one in his life before had looked at him the way she did that night in the gardens. Neither of them knew it yet, but that moment would change everything. It was the first spark in a... Days passed, and the bond between Ethan and Lyra quietly grew stronger. Working together on the Galactic Fashion Expo was no longer just about lights and wires. It became a chance for two very different beings to understand each other. Ethan, though human, adapted to the fast pace of Valeris's elite lifestyle, and Lyra, despite her fame, found comfort in his calm presence. It started with small things. During a long rehearsal, Lyra asked him what Earth was really like. "Is it true that humans fight a lot?" she asked while stretching her long limbs on the mirrored floor of the studio. Ethan shook his head. "We fight sometimes, yes, but not all humans. Most of us just want to live and care for each other. We work, we laugh, and we love. Sometimes the news only shows the bad parts." She considered that. "Humans seem fragile. Your lives are short compared to ours, yet you do so much in them." "Maybe because we know our time is limited," Ethan replied. "It makes us try harder." Lyra had never thought about life that way. Most of her kind lived for centuries. They had time to achieve anything. But humans, Ethan, made everything count, no matter how short life could be. It was admirable in a way that was hard to explain. Soon Lyra invited him to her private practice studio, a place where she rehearsed dances and poses for photo shoots. The walls were lined with mirrors that reflected her beauty, but it was her laughter that made the place feel alive. "You're always so serious," she said one afternoon, watching him adjust lights. "Do humans ever have fun?" "Of course," Ethan replied, twisting a broken panel into place. "But fun for me is fixing things without anyone panicking." She laughed, a sound like crystal bells. "Then maybe I should let you have more fun," she teased, tossing a small light fixture at him. He caught it awkwardly and she laughed harder. That laughter became a sound he looked forward to every day. Their conversations moved beyond work. She asked him about simple things, trees, rain, sunsets, and he told her stories that made her feel things she had forgotten she could feel. Lyra had grown up in a world where every moment was choreographed for cameras and fans, but Ethan made her feel real again, like she could step out of the spotlight and just exist. It wasn't long before Ethan noticed that he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her smile, the way she moved, the way she listened. He felt a strange mix of admiration and comfort he had never experienced with anyone. And Lyra, in turn, felt warmth she hadn't allowed herself to feel in centuries. Fame and admiration were easy, but this connection, this human connection, felt like a heartbeat she could trust. One evening, after a long day of rehearsals, she invited him to see the floating cityscape from her balcony. The towers shimmered like liquid silver and lights moved like stars captured from the sky. "Do you ever get used to this view?" Ethan asked, leaning against the railing. Lyra shook her head. "Never, but it's beautiful. Not because of the lights, but because it reminds me of the universe's endless possibilities." He looked at her. "You remind me of that too. You're like someone who has everything yet wants to see the world like it's brand new every day." She smiled softly. I like seeing it through your eyes." Their friendship grew quietly but steadily. Lyra began sharing stories about her childhood, how she had to maintain perfection even when she felt tired, how she longed for moments of simplicity. Ethan shared his own childhood too, how humans valued honesty and trust and how he learned to appreciate small acts of courage. Over time, whispers began to circulate. The other alien assistants noticed the subtle glances Lyra gave him, the small gestures she allowed no one else to see. Rumors spread in quiet corridors. The supermodel was fond of a human. Most laughed it off, thinking humans were beneath her, incapable of forming true connections with the likes of her. But some watched with cautious interest, wondering if she had finally found someone who could see beyond her fame. One day, Lyra asked Ethan to join her in a private event, a smaller photo shoot for a niche magazine. Most humans would have been overwhelmed by the luxury and attention, but Ethan remained calm. He adjusted lights, positioned reflectors, and even suggested a few angles that the photographers appreciated. After the session, while the team celebrated, Lyra pulled Ethan aside. "You know," she said quietly, "you're the only one here who sees me as me, not as a star or an image." Ethan looked at her and smiled. "Maybe that's what humans do best. We notice the truth." For the first time, Lyra felt comfortable expressing something personal. She confided that she sometimes felt lonely despite all the admiration, that the cameras and applause couldn't fill the emptiness she felt inside. Ethan listened without judgment. He didn't offer empty words or praise her beauty. He simply nodded and shared that humans often find comfort in simple, real connections. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," she whispered, her voice soft, almost shy. "Someone who doesn't care about my fame or my looks." Ethan hesitated, unsure what to say. "I think maybe we're both learning from each other," he said finally. "You show me a world I never imagined, and I show you that even someone small can matter." Lyra's eyes softened and she reached out to touch his arm lightly. It was the first physical connection between them, innocent yet powerful. Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. As the days passed, their friendship slowly shifted into something more. They began sharing meals, exploring Valaris together, and even discussing dreams they hadn't told anyone else. Lyra told Ethan about her desire to travel beyond Valaris to see Earth someday. Ethan promised to show her, painting images of oceans, mountains, and forests with his words. The world outside, however, was not ready for such a bond. The galactic media began to notice Lyra's new attachment. Whispers of the supermodel and the human spread across news channels. Alien fans debated whether this was a scandal or a miracle. Some mocked her, claiming she was lowering herself, while others quietly admired her choice. Lyra ignored the gossip. She knew the truth, her feelings were genuine, and she noticed Ethan beginning to feel the same. The way he looked at her, the way he paused to understand her, was different from anyone else. One quiet night, they walked through the starlit gardens together. The air smelled of alien flowers and the soft glow of plants bathed their faces. "Ethan," Lyra said suddenly, her voice soft, "do you ever wonder if someone like you could ever matter in a world like mine?" He stopped walking and looked at her. "You mean because I'm human?" "Yes," she replied, her eyes searching his. "You're small, fragile, and yet you make me feel safer than anyone else." Ethan felt his heart beat faster. "Lyra, it doesn't matter what the galaxy thinks. You matter to me. That's enough reason for me to care." Her lips curved into a smile. "You're different from all the others," she said. "You make me feel normal." Ethan chuckled. "Normal might be my best feature." They laughed together, a sound mingling with the soft hum of Valaris's floating gardens. In that moment, the universe felt quiet and perfect. But even as they shared these quiet joys, both knew challenges were coming. Their connection defied expectations. A human and the galaxy's most famous supermodel were not supposed to form a bond. Whispers and rumors could turn into scandal. Pressures from her management, fans, and even scientific authorities could threaten what they were building. Yet neither of them wanted to step back. Their friendship, their trust, and the beginnings of something deeper were too important. Ethan continued to help her professionally, always careful, always attentive. Lyra continued to include him in her private world, showing him parts of her life no one else could see. It was during one of these moments, as they watched the glowing city from a quiet balcony, that Lyra realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. She wanted Ethan to stay. Not as a worker, not as an assistant, but as someone essential to her life. "I never thought I could feel like this," she said quietly, staring at the stars. "But with you, I feel like I'm more than just a star. I feel human." Ethan smiled. "Then maybe we both get to be something new together." Lyra reached for his hand and he took it without hesitation. In that small touch, they shared unspoken promises of trust, understanding, and the beginnings of love that no one in the galaxy could predict. The world outside could judge, could gossip, could try to tear them apart. But for that night, in the quiet glow of Valaris, Ethan and Lyra simply existed together. And that simple truth, being seen, being understood, was more powerful than any fame, any beauty, or any alien law. That night marked the true beginning of their story. A human and an alien supermodel had met by chance, and something extraordinary had started to grow between them. A connection that would challenge the galaxy, surprise scientists, and change both of their lives forever. And though neither of them knew it yet, the universe had plans far bigger than a friendship. A story of wonder, scandal, and love was just beginning. The days on Valaris passed in a rhythm of work, laughter, and quiet glances. Ethan and Lyra's bond had grown stronger, but the galaxy outside remained unaware of the depth of their connection. Their lives had become a secret world of their own, a bubble where fame, rumors, and rules held no power. Yet the closer they became, the more fragile that world felt. It started subtly. Small whispers in the studios, rumors among the assistants, and curious glances from the alien staff. Some found it strange that Lyra, the galaxy's most admired supermodel, spent so much time with a human. Others were intrigued, secretly watching the pair. Ethan, ever cautious, noticed the looks but never faltered. Lyra, however, faced a tension she wasn't used to, the whispers of judgment and disbelief. One morning, as Ethan adjusted the lights in her private studio, Lyra approached him with a serious expression. "Ethan," she said softly, "have you ever thought about what people might say if they knew how close we've become?" He paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Of course I have. But their opinions don't change anything between us, do they?" Lyra looked down at her hands, fingers lightly tracing the patterns of her dress. "It's not just opinions. The media, the scientists, my management, they won't accept this. They'll say humans aren't supposed to be involved with someone like me." Ethan straightened, his expression firm. "Then let them talk. You and I know the truth, and that's all that matters." She smiled faintly, comforted by his words. "You make it sound so simple." "I keep it simple because it is," he replied. "Don't make it complicated in your head." Despite his reassurance, tension began to build. The galactic tabloids caught wind of their closeness. Articles appeared with sly headlines. The human technician at the supermodel's side. Lyra's strange friendship. What does it mean? Can a human truly be her equal? The media was relentless, and the gossip spread across Valaris and neighboring systems. Lyra tried to ignore it, continuing her work with Ethan by her side. But one evening, during a live holographic broadcast for a popular Valerian fashion network, an interviewer asked an unexpected question. "Lyra, you've been spending a lot of time with this human. How does it feel to work so closely with someone from Earth?" The cameras focused on her and the studio held its breath. Ethan, behind the scenes, felt a knot in his stomach. He knew this question was more than curiosity. It was a test, a way to see if she would acknowledge their growing bond publicly. Lyra took a deep breath. She could have smiled politely and deflected the question, as she always did with the media. But something inside her had changed. She glanced briefly at Ethan, whose eyes met hers with steady encouragement. She spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Ethan is brilliant at his work, and he has shown me a world I never thought I would experience. That's all I can say for now." The interviewer raised an eyebrow, sensing the subtle meaning behind her words. But before anyone could press further, the broadcast ended. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and pride. Lyra had defended him without making a spectacle, showing the galaxy that he mattered to her. Despite the small victory, tension continued to rise. The gossip reached the ears of Valaris's scientific authorities, who had long studied the biological limits of alien-human interactions. Many claimed that cross-species relationships were impossible, at least biologically. Others were curious, skeptical, or openly hostile. But Lyra refused to let their opinions dictate her choices. Their lives were quietly interrupted one night when Lyra called Ethan to her apartment. She was nervous, pacing in front of the panoramic windows that overlooked the city. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling slightly, I need to tell you something." He looked at her, concern growing. "What is it?" She hesitated, then placed a hand over her stomach. "I'm pregnant." Ethan froze. The words felt surreal, almost impossible. "Pregnant?" he repeated, his voice barely audible. "Yes," she confirmed, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "You got me pregnant, Ethan. The doctors confirmed it today." He took a step back, trying to process the news. I don't know what to say. Is it safe? Are you okay?" Lyra smiled, a mixture of relief and excitement in her expression. "I've never felt more alive. The child is healthy. I'm happy, Ethan. Happier than I've ever been." Ethan's heart raced, a mixture of shock, fear, and joy. He had never imagined that something like this could happen. Humans and Valerians were so different, and yet here was proof that life could bridge that gap. "Do you want to tell anyone?" he asked carefully, thinking about the consequences. Lyra shook her head. "Not yet. The galaxy isn't ready, but we will find a way to make them understand. For now, we have to be careful." Ethan nodded, realizing the weight of responsibility on both of them. Protecting Lyra and their unborn child would require courage, secrecy, and trust, and he would do anything to keep them safe. As days passed, they adjusted to this new reality. Lyra continued to work, her pregnancy carefully monitored by the best medical professionals Valaris could provide. She insisted on maintaining her public image, refusing to hide away completely. Ethan stayed close, supporting her, making sure she had everything she needed, and quietly learning about Valerian biology and culture to help her as best as he could. The news of the pregnancy eventually leaked, despite their precautions. One morning, holographic screens across the city flashed with a shocking announcement: Lyra Valrin pregnant, human father? The galaxy exploded with curiosity, disbelief, and excitement. Scientists debated the biological miracle, journalists speculated endlessly, and fans across multiple systems reacted with shock. Some were thrilled at the idea, calling it a symbol of love beyond boundaries. Others were outraged, claiming it defied nature. Lyra faced the storm with dignity. She appeared on a live broadcast, standing tall and confident, her glow brighter than ever. "Yes," she said, her voice firm, "I am pregnant. And yes, the father is human. This is our choice, and we are happy." The broadcast was viewed by millions, and reactions poured in from every corner of the galaxy. Some applauded her courage. Others criticized. But Lyra remained unshaken, her focus on the life growing inside her and the human who stood by her side. Ethan, meanwhile, felt a mix of pride and fear. He had never imagined his life would take this path, going from a maintenance technician to the father of a child with the galaxy's most famous supermodel. Yet as he watched her face on the screens, glowing with joy and confidence, he knew that he had to rise to the occasion. He would protect her, guide her, and embrace the challenge of fatherhood in a galaxy that didn't understand their bond. Despite the chaos outside, Lyra and Ethan found moments of peace together. They would walk through quiet gardens, watch distant suns set over alien landscapes, and talk about the child's future. Lyra dreamed of showing the baby Earth, teaching them the beauty of both human and Valerian cultures. Ethan imagined raising a child who could bridge worlds, who could carry hope and understanding wherever they went. The pregnancy also deepened their emotional connection. Lyra trusted Ethan completely, sharing fears and hopes she had never spoken aloud. Ethan, in turn, felt a love that was beyond attraction or admiration. He loved her strength, her courage, and the way she saw the world. And he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the days turned into weeks, they prepared for the inevitable scrutiny from the galaxy. Lyra continued to model and attend events with Ethan by her side, silently proving that their bond was real and unbreakable. The media, scientists, and political authorities could speculate all they wanted. Nothing could diminish the truth of their happiness. One evening, as they watched a meteor shower from her balcony, Lyra turned to Ethan. "Do you realize what we're doing?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the streaks of light in the sky. He nodded. "We're changing the galaxy. Not with words, not with laws, but with our lives. We're showing that love doesn't follow rules. It just exists." Lyra smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad it's with you." Ethan held her close, feeling the life within her, a bond that transcended species, fame, and fear. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing with certainty. They would face it together. The galaxy could judge, gossip, or even oppose them. But Ethan and Lyra had discovered a truth stronger than all the opinions in the universe. The truth of connection, courage, and the power of love. And in that truth, a new chapter of their lives was just beginning. One that would shake the foundations of Valaris, challenge scientific understanding, and prove that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when hearts are brave enough to follow them. The galaxy was in uproar. News of Lyra Valrin's pregnancy had spread across Valaris and beyond, causing debates, gossip, and heated discussions. While many admired her courage, others questioned the very possibility of a human father. Scientists argued, politicians commented, and the media thrived on controversy. Yet amidst all this chaos, Lyra remained calm, her focus entirely on her unborn child and the human who had become her anchor. Ethan felt the weight of attention pressing on them. Everywhere they went, eyes followed. Security became stricter. Whispers followed their every step, and some of her colleagues began acting differently, either overly polite or coldly distant. But Ethan stood by her side, quietly steadying her, offering comfort and reassurance. One morning, Lyra received an official message from the Intergalactic Council requesting a meeting. The council wanted to understand the situation, as such a pregnancy was unprecedented. Ethan sensed her unease and gently took her hand. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Lyra smiled, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. Thank you, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you. At the council chambers, the atmosphere was tense. Representatives from various planets were seated in a semicircle, their expressions a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and concern. Lyra walked in confidently, dressed simply, not as the star they expected, but as a mother-to-be with strength in her gaze. Ethan followed slightly behind, feeling the weight of history upon them. The head of the council, a tall being with silver scales and glowing amber eyes, spoke first. Lyra Valrin, you stand before us with a claim that defies biological understanding. This human, you say, is the father? Lyra nodded calmly. Yes, he is the father, and I am happy. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some representatives gasped, others whispered to each other, and a few laughed incredulously. Ethan felt the tension but stayed silent, letting Lyra speak. We are aware of the skepticism, she continued, but the truth is not always understood at first glance. Ethan has shown courage, patience, and intelligence. He is not just a human, he is a partner and a protector. Our child is healthy, and we will face whatever challenges come together. One scientist, clearly trying to assert authority, stood. This is biologically impossible. No human has ever produced viable offspring with a Valerian. How can this be? Lyra looked at him calmly. Science has limits, but life itself has possibilities beyond understanding. Our child exists. That is proof enough. A murmur of respect spread through some corners of the chamber. Ethan realized that her words carried weight. Lyra's courage and confidence were forcing the galaxy to pause, to reconsider the rules they had long taken for granted. After the meeting, they walked out into the bright sunlight of Valaris's capital city. Ethan could feel Lyra's tension beginning to ease. You handled that beautifully, he said quietly. She smiled. I couldn't have done it without you. Your presence. It grounds me. Over the following weeks, the couple faced both admiration and hostility. Messages poured in from fans, some cheering them on, others questioning their choices. Aliens across different systems debated endlessly about the child. Yet through all of this, Ethan and Lyra remained focused on each other. They found quiet moments in the chaos, late-night walks through the floating gardens, small dinners in hidden terraces, and long conversations under the starlit skies. One afternoon, as Lyra rested in her apartment, Ethan noticed her hand lightly brushing her stomach. Do you think they'll ever accept us? She asked softly, a hint of worry in her voice. Ethan took her hand and squeezed it gently. Some will, some won't, but those who matter, our child and us, they already accept it. That's enough. Lyra leaned into him, comforted by his presence. I hope so. I want our child to grow up in a world where love matters more than rules and opinions. Ethan nodded. And I promise we'll make that world for them, no matter how hard it gets. As her pregnancy progressed, the challenges grew. Some medical officials demanded constant tests, and certain news networks continued to broadcast speculation and criticism. But Ethan stood by her side through every appointment, every consultation, and every difficult moment. He learned about Valerian biology, the needs of her changing body, and how to support her both physically and emotionally. During one evening in the floating gardens, Lyra paused watching the distant stars. Ethan, do you realize what we're doing? She asked softly. He looked at her, understanding immediately. We're proving that love can cross worlds. That rules, biology, and prejudice don't define the heart. She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. I just hope our child grows up knowing that. That they are proof that the impossible is possible. Their quiet life was soon interrupted by a delegation of Valerian scientists who arrived unannounced, demanding a private audience. The scientists were intrigued by the possibility of human-Valerian hybrid biology, but their tone carried suspicion. We need to study the child, one said, his voice formal. It is unprecedented, and understanding it is essential for science. Lyra faced them with calm resolve. No one will examine our child without consent. You may study the facts, but the life within me is protected. Do you understand? The room fell silent. Ethan sensed the tension, but he stood by her, firm and unwavering. You will respect her wishes, he added. Or you will leave. The scientist hesitated, then nodded, realizing that neither Lyra nor Ethan would back down. The couple's courage and unity had already shown that no one could control their lives without their permission. In private, After the delegation left, Lyra turned to Ethan. I never imagined facing so much resistance, she admitted softly. But having you here makes me feel fearless, Ethan smiled, brushing her hair gently. Fearless together. That's how we'll face the galaxy. Side by side. As the pregnancy continued, Lyra's glow seemed to intensify. The child inside her grew stronger and their bond deepened. They spent nights imagining the child's future, what kind of life they would lead, the worlds they would explore, and the love they would inherit from both parents. But challenges were never far away. Rumors continued to circulate, and some factions of the galaxy openly opposed their relationship. Threats arrived in subtle forms, anonymous messages warning of public shame, veiled attempts to pressure them, and even challenges to their safety. Ethan and Lyra refused to be intimidated. They invested in security, carefully planned public appearances, and relied on each other for emotional strength. Their love had become a shield, protecting them from the hostility that surrounded them. One evening, as they watched the sunset over the floating city, Lyra spoke softly. Do you think we can really change their minds? Ethan held her hand firmly. We already have. Some may never understand, but those who matter, they will. And our child will grow up in a world we've made better than the one we inherited. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I hope so. I want them to know that love is stronger than fear. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy slowly began to shift. Public opinion started to show signs of support, inspired by Lyra's courage and Ethan's unwavering presence. Stories of their love appeared in sympathetic media outlets, focusing on their bravery and devotion rather than scandal. Some of the harshest critics even softened, unable to deny the authenticity of their bond. Despite the changing tides, Ethan and Lyra continued to live their life quietly together, away from the prying eyes of the galaxy. They found solace in simple moments, walking in the floating gardens, sharing meals in hidden corners, and laughing softly in the quiet of their private spaces. It was during one such evening that Lyra rested her head against Ethan's chest and whispered, I never thought life could be this. Beautiful. Ethan smiled, feeling the life inside her, the future they were creating together. It's only the beginning, he said softly, and we'll face it all together. As stars shimmered above the city of Valaris, the couple sat in quiet contentment, their bond unshakable. They had faced the galaxy's scrutiny, the uncertainty of the unknown, and the challenge of unprecedented circumstances. And through it all, their love had grown stronger, preparing them for the next chapter of their lives, the arrival of a child who would symbolize the extraordinary power of love and courage. The galaxy could gossip, scientists could debate, and skeptics could doubt. But Ethan and Lyra knew one undeniable truth. They were together. Their child was coming, and nothing could break the bond they had forged. And in that truth, the greatest story the galaxy had ever seen was quietly, powerfully unfolding. The weeks passed swiftly, and Lyra's pregnancy was reaching its final stages. Despite the galaxy's constant scrutiny and the endless speculation about their unprecedented situation, she and Ethan had created a bubble of calm around themselves. The couple spent their days preparing for the arrival of their child, making decisions together about safety, care, and the world they hoped their baby would inherit. Ethan had grown more confident in his role, no longer just a human technician or assistant, but a protector, partner, and soon-to-be father. He would often spend hours holding Lyra's hand as she rested, talking to the child within her, and imagining what their life would be like after the birth. Lyra found comfort in his quiet presence, and his calmness helped her remain strong amidst the chaos outside. One morning, Lyra awoke with a sense of anticipation she could not ignore. Ethan, she called softly, her voice trembling with excitement. I think it's time. The baby is ready to meet the world. Ethan rushed to her side, gently supporting her as they moved to the private medical chamber prepared for the birth. The room was equipped with the best technology Valaris could offer, designed to handle both Valarian and human needs. Despite the clinical setting, it felt warm and intimate, a place where life could enter safely into the galaxy. Doctors and assistants quietly monitored Lyra, giving her space and encouragement. Ethan never left her side, holding her hand, speaking softly, and reassuring her that everything would be fine. You're stronger than anyone I know, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I'll be right here with you, every step of the way." Hours passed, filled with the rhythm of contractions, steady guidance from medical staff, and Ethan's unwavering presence. Lyra's determination was remarkable. Despite fatigue and the physical challenges of the pregnancy, she faced each moment with courage. Driven by love for both her child and Ethan, at one point she looked up at him, sweat glistening on her brow, and whispered, "I never imagined it could feel like this. So intense, so real." Ethan smiled, though his eyes were filled with emotion. "Life is always intense, Lyra, but this is the most beautiful part. Our child is almost here." Finally, after what felt like an eternity and yet passed in mere hours, the first cries of their child echoed through the room. Ethan and Lyra both leaned closer, tears streaming down their faces. The sound was more than just a cry. It was a declaration of life, a miracle bridging two worlds and proof of the love that had brought them here. The medical team carefully placed the baby in Lyra's arms. It was small, delicate, and yet undeniably strong. Its eyes, half open, seemed to take in the light of the room with curiosity and awareness far beyond its age. Lyra cradled the child, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of awe, love, and wonder. Ethan bent closer, his hands hovering protectively over both Lyra and their baby. "It's incredible," he whispered. "We did it. We really did it." Lyra laughed softly through tears. "We did, and look at them, our little miracle." As the hours passed, they named their child, choosing a name that symbolized unity between species and worlds. They decided on Kale, a name that meant bridge in an ancient Valerian dialect, representing the connection that had brought human and Valerian together, and the new path their child would walk in the galaxy. Once Kale was settled in Lyra's arms, Ethan gently kissed her forehead. "They're perfect," he said simply, feeling the weight of his words. "Just like you, Lyra, and they're ours." Despite the significance of the moment, the galaxy had not stopped watching. News of the birth spread almost immediately, with live holographic broadcasts showing the couple holding their child. Millions tuned in, some in disbelief, others with joy, as they witnessed what had once seemed impossible. Lyra spoke to the galaxy with calm authority. "This is Kale Valrin. They are healthy, strong, and loved. And yes, their father is human. Our love made this possible, and we will protect and guide them together." Ethan stood beside her, quiet but proud, holding her hand. He had never imagined this moment, yet he felt a sense of destiny, knowing that his life had led to this miracle. The galaxy might debate, question, or criticize, but here, in this room, there was only truth, love, and life. The days that followed were filled with adjustments, learning, and care. Lyra recovered quickly, supported by Ethan and a dedicated team of medical professionals. They learned how to balance their responsibilities with the needs of their newborn, spending long hours teaching, comforting, and bonding with Kale. Ethan, despite being human and relatively inexperienced with infants, proved to be an instinctive and protective father. He often stayed awake through the night, soothing Kale's cries and ensuring Lyra had rest. Lyra, in turn, marveled at his patience and devotion, feeling more certain than ever that she had chosen the right partner to face both life and parenthood with. The galaxy began to respond. Slowly at first, skepticism turned into admiration. Scientists studied Kale's healthy development with careful respect. Journalists shared stories of the couple's courage, and families across Valaris and neighboring systems celebrated the demonstration of love and unity that had brought Kale into existence. Lyra and Ethan also faced challenges, critics who refused to accept a human father, authorities insisting on monitoring their family, but they faced them together, always putting the needs and protection of Kale first. The couple's unity and strength became a symbol of hope and possibility. One evening, as the city shimmered with the light of 1,000 stars, Lyra, Ethan, and Kale watched the skyline from their private balcony. Kale rested safely in Lyra's arms, eyes wide and curious, absorbing the sights and sounds of Valaris. Ethan spoke softly, looking down at his child. "They're going to change the galaxy, you know. Kale will show everyone that love and courage matter more than rules and differences." Lyra nodded, a gentle smile on her face. "And they'll have you to guide them. Your humanity, your wisdom, it will shape them in ways I could never imagine." The bond between the three of them was undeniable, In the quiet of that balcony, away from the chaos and scrutiny, they felt a peace that neither fame nor controversy could touch. Kale represented the union of two worlds, the triumph of courage and love, and the possibility that the galaxy could be a place of understanding rather than judgment. As weeks turned into months, their family adjusted to life together. Public appearances were carefully managed, allowing Lyra to maintain her career while keeping Kyle protected. Ethan remained by her side at every event, his quiet confidence and dedication earning respect from even the most skeptical observers. The couple also spent time teaching Kale about both human and Valerian cultures, telling stories of courage, adventure, and love. Kale responded with curiosity and intelligence beyond their years, already displaying traits that reflected both parents' strengths, the compassion and curiosity of a human, and the grace and wisdom of a Valerian. Slowly, the galaxy began to accept what had once seemed impossible. Messages of support arrived from unexpected places, including scientists who had initially doubted the pregnancy, fans who admired Lyra's courage, and leaders who recognized the potential for unity that this family represented. Lyra and Ethan, however, remained grounded. They knew that acceptance from the galaxy was only part of their journey. The true importance was the love they shared and the home they were building for Kale. One evening, as Kale slept peacefully in Lyra's arms, she turned to Ethan. "I never thought life could be this full, this meaningful," she said softly. Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's the life we've chosen, Lyra. Difficult, yes, but filled with love, courage, and purpose. And we'll keep choosing it every day." Lyra nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. "I couldn't imagine facing any of it without you." Ethan held her close, feeling the life of their child between them, the quiet hum of the city below, and the endless possibilities of the galaxy above. "We're a family now," he said softly. "And nothing, not the media, not rules, not doubts, can ever take that from us." As stars twinkled over Valaris, the trio sat together, a human, a Valerian supermodel, and their extraordinary child, forming a bond that defied expectations and inspired countless others. The galaxy had watched, debated, and speculated, but here in this quiet moment, life, love, and courage had triumphed. Lyra whispered softly, "Our story is just beginning. Ethan, Kale will grow knowing that love can cross any boundary, that the impossible is possible." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in his heart. "And we'll show them every day, together." In that moment, surrounded by light, warmth, and the quiet power of their love, Ethan, Lyra, and Kale embraced the future, a future filled with hope, courage, and the unshakable truth that love, above all else, could conquer any challenge. And so, the story of a human, a Valerian supermodel, and their child became a legend across the galaxy. It was a tale of courage, defiance, and love, proving that even in a universe of differences, hearts brave enough to follow love could achieve the extraordinary. The galaxy would remember them, not for their fame, not for their differences, but for the family they had built, the life they had nurtured, and the love that had changed everything. Ethan squeezed Lyra's hand, Kyle resting peacefully in her arms, and whispered, "We did it. We really did it." Lyra smiled, glowing with warmth and pride. "Yes, Ethan.